Hey guys, how are you all doing? Hope you're well. So, another job, not carburetors this time, you'll be pleased to hear. Triumph 955i, it's a 2005, so an oldish one. It's got some running issues. The customer is telling me that at small little throttle openings, sort of 30, 40, 50 mile an hour, it's really unhappy, basically, is the way he describes it. He says you can ride around it. If you accelerate hard, the problem goes away. But he's at a point, he's had a go at fixing it himself, so it's had things like, and don't ask me why, but it's had ignition coils, it's had plugs, it's had an engine coolant temperature sensor for some reason. What else has it had? Oh, he did the valve clearances as well. I think there might have been a couple of other things. Anyway, he's sort of at a point now where he doesn't want to throw a lot of money at it because it's not worth very much money, but he'd kind of like to fix it. And if it can't be fixed, he's just going to move it on to somebody else. So I haven't even started it. Arrived a couple of days ago. You now know as much as I do. Let's start it up and see what it does. Oh, hang on, I need to pull the clutch in. Let's put you down here on the tripod. Put you down like this. Sorry, I'm such an amazing cameraman. Right. Start it up. Okay, let me stand back away from it so you can hear me. So first observation, started pretty easily and the engine check light isn't on. Let's just let it get some heat in it and see how it behaves. And then what we'll do is I'll put a camera on it and we'll go and have a spin. I say this all the time, don't I? But you've got to be able to replicate the fault. You can't replicate the fault, you can't fix it. So I'm gonna stick a camera on it and take you for a road test. Let's go and see if we can make it misbehave. So observation, so it's been running now for a couple of minutes and it's not coming down off its fast idle as quickly as you would imagine it would. I don't know whether that's a clue or not. Just rev it up a bit. Yeah, that's a bit weird. So it's getting a little bit of heat in it now. It's still nearly 2000 RPM. So my initial, let me get back away from it so the mic isn't picking it up so much. My initial thought at this point is maybe vacuum leak. What you'll find with these is, though, if I'm not talking out of my arse, is if you've got a big vacuum leak and the stepper motor doing the idle air control runs out of steps, for want of a better word, so it has a target RPM that it's trying to get to for its idle speed, and obviously the actual RPM, which is coming from the crank position sensor. If it can't bring the idle down using the idle air control valve, the stepper motor, it'll put the engine check light on. And I did ask him and the engine check light's never been on, so I don't know, maybe it'll come back down to an idle, we'll see. But I am initially thinking vacuum leak from somewhere. It might be starting to slow slightly. I'll let it warm up. We'll go and get my helmet and my coat on and I'll fix a camera up on the tank here and we'll ride it. Okay, hopefully you can hear me. So it's hot now, look. Still at nearly 2000 RPM and it won't. Fucking hell, 2,500 there. Something very wrong with this motorbike. without even riding it, we can tell that. Let's not drop it on my wife's car. That wouldn't make her very happy. Okay, we're going to go a different way today. Fucking hell. I'm not even touching the throttle and I'm doing... Yeah, that's not correct. I should have probably connected my scan tool and just had a bit of a looky-loo before we rode it, but let's just replicate what he says, like 30-40 mile an hour. Go on then. Why is it fucking revving like that? It's like over 2000 RPM, but there's no check light on. You'd think the stepper idle air control would be maxed out and it'd... How weird. I got my lights on. I don't know whether I have or not. Yeah, I think I have, but they're like a candle in a bloody jam jar. Okay, so I mean, that feels alright to me. I don't know what this video is going to come out like on this camera. It's neat. It's getting quite dark. It's getting on for 4 o'clock and the clocks have changed and winter's arrived. It's freezing bloody cold. Miserable. Okay, I don't want to go too fast. Let's slow down a bit. So I'm in top. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It seems fine. I mean, it's, you know, the idle's ridiculously high. I mean, that's no throttle, and I'm doing 30 miles an hour. It's not even top. Like 30 mile an hour. Now, hang on, let's get it into top. There's no cars behind me. We're just under 2000 RPM, 30 mile an hour. It feels alright. Get on the throttle and it pulls nice and clean. I don't know, maybe I'm misunderstanding the problem, the way he was describing it. I'm just going to turn around here. I don't want to ride any further. That's not me, guys. That is literally, look, no throttle. Okay, I think what I need to do in this instance is ring him and have a conversation. Because, well, that's as slow as I can get it to go. That's basically tickling the throttle. Oh, it is a little bit. Okay, I can feel it now. I've just got the throttle cracked and it's really, you know, that sort of lean, surgy, can't hold a constant speed feeling. Yeah, I see now. Okay. here, that's just cracking the throttle, and it's the moment you give it gas, it clears and it's away. Right, okay, we have successfully replicated said problem. Right, let's get it back in the workshop, see if we can find out what's going on. I think the fast idle and that problem are the same problem, and I'm thinking maybe a vacuum leak. Let's go and find out. Right, see you in the workshop. I'm not sure you can hear me particularly well over the sound of this engine, but I was riding, I turned the camera off, and then it did actually get worse to a point where it felt like that first little bit of the throttle was completely dead. It didn't, you went to accelerate, and as you just started to crack the throttle, you slowed down more. Do you see what I mean? And it was doing it a bit when I just brought it in the workshop then, but of course now I've got the camera on it, it's not doing it. It was almost cutting out as I started to open the throttle. Anyway, let's get the tank lifted up. Can you hear me? Sorry. I really struggle with my audio. I need different microphones, I think. Let's get the tank up, see if there's any clues. Okay, slight change of direction just before I start trying to remove the tank, because once the tank's disconnected I can't run it, can I? So I was just looking underneath here, because you can actually get at quite a lot of it without removing the tank. So the throttle body is like one big cast piece, and God, it looks manky around this gasket surface here. They've obviously been off at some point. Can I zoom you in on there a little bit? Maybe I can. See, that gasket surface looks kind of horrible. Anyway, I wanted to get busy with some brake cleaner while it was running just around these manifolds, just eliminate those from the possible vacuum leak situation, and then I think I can get to a lot of underneath there with a brake cleaner, just the pipes that come from the IAC. I think I can see one of them. I'm just going to generally spray a bit of brake cleaner around there, see if it affects it in any way. Okay, so no significant change in engine note. Obviously it's all up and down a little bit anyway, that idle, but spraying brake cleaner everywhere I can get it is making no difference. Next thing I think I'll do quickly before I start disturbing it more is let's do fuel pressure. That's probably sensible. And then maybe plug the scan tool in. That's also probably sensible before we start taking it apart too much. Right, onwards. So fuel pressure first. So I've got my little jobby what's-it connected here with my gauge connected up. Let's, should be, will that stay there? Why are you leaking? Uh-oh. What's happening? Oh, it's not plugged in. Okay. Will that stay on there? Maybe. Should be 42 psi. Which it is. We getting that? Right, let's run it and see if there's any massive discrepancy. CC. Flip the throttle. Now that's holding, let me turn this off. Sorry about the dodgy light as well, guys. That's holding steady, so definitely not fuel pressure related. Let's get the scan tool plugged in. Okay guys, where are we up to? Just been in and made a brew. Been having a bit of a think about this. It's often good to step away and gather your thoughts, isn't it? Right, so I've got the Texas TXB Evolution connected up. Before I turn the bike on and stuff, just wanted to just talk through the process a little bit. It's a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle, this, in that we're getting these little bits of information and putting them together to make the bigger picture, if you like. That's a shit analogy, sorry, but you get my point. So what do we actually know about this thing? We know it doesn't seem to have any control over its idle. The idle is hanging, and it's quite, when the engine's hot, it's sort of surging around quite a bit, and also didn't capture it on camera particularly well on the road test, but that first little bit of the throttle, as you start to crack the butterflies open, there's a big dead spot, and as you come on the throttle, it almost, you know, slows the engine down rather than gives you acceleration. Once you get on it, it's fine. So those are two things we know with 100% certainty, which is waffling. Why I always say you have to be able to replicate the fault reliably. That's a crucial bit of information in enabling you to be able to fix something. So if you're doing it for a living and the bike only plays up every second Tuesday of the month when there's a northwesterly fucking wind or whatever it is, or you've got to road test it for an hour and a half before it'll play up, just honestly, just say thanks but no thanks. It needs to be, I mean, if you want to stitch yourself up, go right ahead, but I've arrived at that after 30 years of doing it. Just don't do it to yourself. Anyway, that said, so we know it can't hold an idle. We know it's got some weird woolliness at small throttle openings. We're almost certain that it doesn't have a vacuum leak, although that test is not conclusive. It's a good test, that, because the airbox and the tank were still in the way. Any brake cleaner that I sprayed up there, the vapour from that will find its way into any little split vacuum hoses, and you'll hear a change in engine note, and I wasn't getting that. So I'm reasonably confident there's no vacuum leak. So that's where we're at. Now then, just a little bit about these early fuel injection systems on these Triumphs, just before we open this up. They're a bit weird in that they don't have a mass airflow like most motorbikes, but they don't have a map sensor either. They're heavily reliant upon the TPS, so the throttle position sensor is super critical, and it's a long time since I worked on one, but there is a somewhere we'll find it when we go in. Somewhere in here is a reset for the throttle valve position. So what you used to do back in the day, you would do you'd take the, how to explain, so there's an idle air control valve, right, a little stepper motor, and it's got 4 pipes coming off it, 1 pipe to each cylinder. When the throttle is shut, so when the butterflies are shut on these, as with a lot of modern fuel injected engines, the butterflies are properly shut. They should seal off the inlet manifolds, and the only way the engine gets air to be able to run at idle is through that stepper motor and those 3 little pipes. Okay, what you do is, to set them up, and I'm beginning to think maybe this is just possibly a setup problem, you do a throttle body balance. So you pull off the 3 pipes that would be supplying air for when it's idling, and you connect your vacuum gauges, and you just hold the throttle at sort of 1200 RPM, 1200 RPM, and you use the adjustment screws to make sure the butterflies are in synchronization with one another. Number 1 butterfly on cylinder number 1 is fixed, and then you balance the other 2 to number 1, if that makes sense. Then when you let go of the throttle, theoretically those butterflies are completely sealing off the inlet manifold. Then that gives the idle air control valve, sorry I'm really going on, but there might be some useful information, that then gives the idle air control valve, the stepper motor, complete control over the idle, because there's no air getting in through anywhere else. Obviously if you have a vacuum leak, that's potentially a problem, etc. That's why it's important to check for vacuum leaks. Once you've done that, somewhere in this software, I'll find it, is a throttle valve reset procedure, and that just tells the ECU that is the 0 point with a closed throttle, because the entire fuel map, because there's no mass airflow or map sensor, the entire fuel map is based on the TPS position. So the ECU needs to know where 0 is to calculate the fueling all the way through the rev range, depending on where your throttle is. Now I've had half a cup of tea and I've thought about it a little bit and delved into my memory banks. I'm thinking it's something, maybe the throttle bodies are out of sync and there's air passing. I don't know, but I think what I want to do is just have a quick look in here, see what's going on. I think we're going to end up taking the tank and the airbox off and having a look and seeing what's going on, because I know this has previously been a part to have its valve clearances done and stuff. Yeah, there's history, and I can see actually, even with the tank on, there's a bolt missing off. One of the retaining bolts for the air filter is missing, which doesn't bode well. Anyway, fucking hell, that was a waffle. Hopefully you glean some information. So we know it's a Triumph and we know it's a Tiger. That one, I think. Triumph Tiger 955i 01206. And I'll do a screen record on here just so you can see what's going on. The screen recorder is already running. Right, so let's start that. Turn the ignition on the bike. The bike is already warm. I was running it. Contact, no fault codes. So we've got all sorts of different parameters here. And then in, where was it? This one, settings. What have we got? Yeah, throttle valve reset. That's the one I was talking about. And then this one manually, this throttle closed position is a manual adjustment for that. Anyway, I won't get into that. And then you can adjust the stepper motor manually and stuff. Let's just start it up and have a quick look at these parameters. Things probably worth showing you is, see this engine RPM here, 1539, and then somewhere on here is the target shout, if you see it, reference idle speed 1210. So that's what it wants it to be idling at, 1200, and it's idling at 15 something. Let's look for the stepper position. In fact, what I can do, I can choose which ones I want to display, so let's do that. So we'll have, let's have engine RPM. Let's have position of the stepper motor. No, we don't want the adapted one, we want the reference idle speed. Short-term fuel trim will be interesting. Stepper position, that might do for now. Okay, where's long-term fuel trim? Let's add that. Is that in here? Long-term fuel trim, let's have that. Let's have that as well. Might be relevant to the TPS. Okay, you'd expect, under normal circumstances, you'd expect this stepper position to be bringing these two RPMs. They should match effectively. This should be somewhere near 1200. Okay. Fuel trims are about right. That's nothing to worry about there. Okay, let's just try something. So a good test, I remember this from years ago. If you reset the throttle valve closed position and the RPM changes, you've either got a vacuum leak or your throttle bodies are out of balance. That's basically one of the tests we used to do back in the day. Which one is it? It's that one there, isn't it? Throttle valve reset. Right, listen to the engine RPM. In fact, let me just bring that in. So So we're at 1550, just in case you can't hear it. Oh, that's gone up. Did you hear that? Okay. See how much it's gone up. Right, let me turn this off. Right, what I just did then, I just made the ECU look at the value, which would basically be it would be this value. God, you've got to be a fucking geek to want to get into this. So I've basically told that, oh, I've lost me, I turned the ignition off, sorry. That throttle, in fact, let me turn it back on. I want to show you that sort of interesting information. As soon as they're annoying these, as soon as you turn the ignition off, it loses its connection. Come on now, let's be having you. Right, this throttle potentiometer, this is in degrees here. That reset, this throttle valve reset, basically makes the ECU look at this value, okay, and based on that value, the throttle position where it is, it's not expecting any extra air. It's assuming that the 3 inlet manifolds are completely sealed off and it's only getting air from the IAC, the idle air control. Am I making sense? And the fact that the RPM went up when I did that reset would suggest that there's either A, a vacuum leak, or B, the throttle bodies are out of balance, or I suppose C, the throttle body butterflies have been held open slightly for some reason. Okay, I think we're making progress. Sorry for the massive waffle, but some of you I know find this sort of stuff interesting. I'm going to get the tank and the airbox off now and have a look at the yeah, just have a look at what's going on. I just thought of something then. I also wanted to see, I put that, what was that sensor value voltage? That's all right. This is the reference voltage for the TPS and some other sensors. It's a 5-volt reference, 4.94. That's what the ECU thinks it's putting out. What I could do is I could put a multimeter on the 5-volt reference wire going into the TPS and just double check that that 4.94 is arriving at the TPS. That's a valid test as well, because if that reference voltage has been pulled to ground somewhere in the wiring loom or been pulled to ground by another sensor potentially, that can really throw you a curveball. Right, I'm going to stop talking, I'm going to get this bike apart.